everyone, welcome to NetDispatcher Training Academy. This video will show you guys how to run a typical process in a landscaping company, from a sales all the way to production and the dispatching, scheduling, and finally on an invoice and running it through QuickBooks. Let's start from the sales part. I'm going to go into the sales process and start by adding a new lead into the system. You can start by typing in your customer or prospect, and depending on if this customer is already an existing company or a prospect, you can select it from your either prospect record or from your customer record. And the difference is, you're going to notice if it's an existing customer that the customer number shows up by the customer name. Let's select this one and key in a contact name, maybe a role, and any of the other details you guys want to check from that customer and lead. When you save it, it becomes automatically a sales project within your sales pipeline. You can start tracking activities, maybe attach attachments, and start tracking any of the sales stages. In this case, we may want to do an on-site assessment to do the measurements on the property, talk to the property owner, get more information, and store it into the system. You can pre-schedule this to a dispatching board if you want to. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But in this case, I'm going to start the quoting process and track that status in the system and start creating the actual proposal in the system. I do that by hitting the create over proposal. I select a predefined template, which you can go into settings and start setting up as a estimating sheet. In this case, I'm going to select the Kentucky Bluegrass Lawn Care program. I am selecting the existing customer. If you guys are setting up a new prospect, at this point it's recommended that you create this as a new customer and fill out the customer card to have an automated level of details in your code templates. In this case, I'm going to hit OK. It transfers me to whatever the template and estimating sheet has automatically. I can go in and start tracking my details on the project, and however many times we go on site and do any items like lawn care, I could start adding items. In this case, let's just add a typical lawn care. Let's say we go out there 26 times and we spend 1.5 hours each time we go on site, and we're going to charge $56 each time. And it builds up the price. And in this case, if you do want to schedule the on-site assessment, you would use the job details at that point. In my case, I just want to print out the quote, and the system is asking if I want to use the price for the sales project. I click yes. This 34, 35, 15 transfers over, and then in this case I want to use any quote template I have predefined into the system by the report center, and then I print it out and it brings me the actual quote I want to show to my customer. And you can build these templates from the report center. That's the document I would send to my customer, and then I want to save this estimate. It transfers me over to the sales project, and I could attach my quote into this document, activity, if I want to, for later purpose. So now the quote is attached to one of the activities. Later on, let's start from the front page. Later on, when the customer says yes, we want to do this project or program, you would go in and search for that customer. In this case, I want to use the search functionality, take that project, and close the deal. I'll mark it as one, and it becomes it brings me back to this order proposal or estimating sheet. I can make changes if I need to. If you guys have a separate contract, you can print the contract from here. In this case, I'm just going to turn it into an actual work order in our system. And by default, this goes to our production queue for scheduling. And that's where we're going to go next. Obviously, it will be a different person, most likely, handling the actual scheduling and the actual dispatching board. In this case, when I look at the details I have in here, the one we sold today is here at the top for Alberto. Obviously, you guys may want to use the holding area to shoot all these new work orders which needs to be scheduled or turned into a lawn care programs. You could do that. So let me do that by just throwing it to the holding area. Now, if this is a one-off item, I can obviously just go ahead and start adding this to any of the crews or personnel and their schedules just by drag and dropping it to the bottom. If it is a lawn care program, I would go into a service agreement and select my Kentucky lawn care program and add this to a new customer. Now, that's a service agreement setup which you guys can look at from some of the other videos we have in here. In this case, I'm gonna pretend that this is a one-time item, and I'm gonna shoot it to Jane and Jane's today's schedule, so we can take a look at the details from the mobile. So I am logged in as Jane from my mobile. So when I go into Jane's job queue for today, I can see two items on the job queue. These two items here on the dispatcher, and you guys can see that the status changes the next time I'm looking at my job queues. I'm going to take the one we closed today from the sales. I'm going to start it. I'm going to go and look at the details on it. Any details I have set up in my system would show up here. In this case, I've got a couple mandatory items in here. I have to fill them out. And you'll notice that the status is being tracked as I type in and as I start and complete the job. I can complete it once I leave the site. Depending on your process, you could have the guys out there, if it's a residential property, have them invoice it on site. In my case, in my process, I want the dispatcher to do the review. And to do the review, you could right click, take a look at the work order. If everything looks good, there's no time and materials items I need to price out, I could turn it into an invoice by sending this invoice to an invoice queue. Let's mark it as to be invoiced, save it, and it goes to a batch invoice process. And now my job for this work order is done as a dispatcher. Later, let's say on a bi-weekly or weekly or daily basis, you guys can go in and look at the batch invoice process where all the completed and queued work orders show up, and decide to group invoices by the customer or generate single invoices, group products and materials if you want to. You could preview the batch of invoices or just simply generate the invoices. And in case you guys have a lot of invoices, let's say 40-50 invoices for that invoicing cycle, you can directly send everything to QuickBooks just by automatically selecting the entire batch. And that's the default. If you do want to look at the details on that invoice, you can obviously open any of the invoices, do the preview, make sure everything looks good on the preview. This will pull up a PDF on your look and feel. And if you need to make any changes, you could do that, or just by simply sending it to QuickBooks, this one single invoice here at the bottom. You can obviously print it and send it to your customer depending on your process. Now, as an invoicer, my job is done. So when I look at this invoice, it's already been synced to QuickBooks. If you guys do the payment process, either through the mobile, through the credit card, or just by simply associating the payment for this invoice, you could actually go into an invoice and add payments directly from here, which is then obviously syncing to the invoice itself and tracking the transactions. And you can see all the payment transactions from the accounts receivables tab separately if you need to make changes on that. That concludes the process, running through the sales to dispatching through the mobile, back to invoicing, and then sending the invoice to the QuickBooks. Thank you.